guys, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, it's theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Keep your questions coming in. They're good. You can email me, Dan at theclinicaltrialsguru.com, or you can also call or text me 949-415-6256 like this individual did today. So they're asking, during an SIV, that's a site initiation visit, so that's the visit after the site selection visit, when the site has already been selected by the sponsor, now the CRA goes in there for the SIV and initiates the site. It's just what it sounds like. They make sure the site has all the passwords, the various vendors there and working, that the correct people have access to the different platforms like the EDC systems, access to the ECG machines, and the ability to transmit an ECG via fax, usually, to the central ECG reader. They make sure that all the IP, the investigational product, is on site. They also make sure that all the source documents are complete, all the reg documents are there, the IRB, that the site has IRB approval, that the informed consents are there, that the lab kits are there, and then anything else, any other miscellaneous stuff. Basically, making sure that the site is ready to start screening subjects. So this question says, during an SIV, the site informs you, so this is a CRA asking me this, during an SIV, the site informs you that the subject source documents will be stored at a separate location from the testing site. Is this an issue? I mean, it's interesting, but it's not an issue. It's definitely not typical. And mind you, I've never been a CRA. I've been on the other end of this as a research site, and I've dealt with this issue. Well, I've dealt with an issue kind of related to this several times when we had satellite sites. So for this to work out, the subjects, from what I understand, the subjects are being seen at one address for their visits, but the source documents are being stored somewhere else. So they probably are doing this because they don't have adequate space at their clinic to keep the binders, because they can definitely add up and occupy a lot of space at the facility. So they're probably using a satellite site. This is fine. You just have to make sure that both addresses are on the 1572, and then you have to make sure, I mean, to really be on the safe side and make sure that documents are not getting lost. I mean, this is just a spontaneous answer, and I know Intralinks is a sponsor of this show. I would have them upload the source documents in some kind of cloud like Intralinks Via. We didn't have that back when I had satellite sites. What we did was have copies at one site of the source documents and the original somewhere else. But in this person's case, if space really is the issue, a virtual workspace would be perfect. If that's not an option, you need to have them have some kind of log of who's transferring the source documents, because they have to bring the source documents with them at the site where the subject's actually being seen and the procedures are actually being done. So those source documents have to be completed there and then transported back to the other satellite site. So to actually do this without using a virtual workspace, you're going to need to have a log each time someone transports any source documentation from the testing facility to the address where the source documents will be kept. It's tedious, but it's the only way to assure that there's some responsibility for somebody transporting the source documents to the other address when after a visit has occurred at the other address. So again, a virtual workspace would kind of eliminate the need for this, because if you complete the source documents at the testing facility and then you upload them to Intralinks Via or any other virtual workspace and then transport them to the other facility, let's say they get lost, at least you still have copies of the source documents uploaded. But just to be on the safe side, a transportation log is, I would require it as a sponsor and as a CRA. We were told numerous times by monitors, no matter how busy you get, you're never to take source documents out of the office. specifically for coordinators who wanted to take the source documents home and work on these things from home. We're not allowed to do that. Okay, so to transport it from one facility to another, that would be more appropriate. I mean, it's an option, especially if both addresses are on the 1572, but you would need a transportation log that would document who's taking what document on what date and then when it arrived at the other site. Same thing for the regulatory documents. And then as far as you, the CRA, and where you're going to go monitor the records, that's completely up to you and the site. Because if both sites are on the 1572, you can theoretically monitor the files from any location. So you'd have to figure out which one's best for you. But I would definitely, if they didn't tell you this at the SSV, it's because they didn't want to add any complications for their site to be selected. And now that they have already been selected, and I don't blame them for doing this, but now that they know they've already been selected, they're letting you know the real deal, and it can be done. But I would definitely let the sponsor know or your project manager know and ask them what they think about having a log. Is it excessive? I don't think so. I know when you're transporting investigational product between two satellite sites, you absolutely need a log. You also need a temperature control storage that will actually go in the car, and you got to control the temperature of the IP while it's being transported, so you have to have a log for that as well, a temperature transportation log for the IP. So yeah, that's it's a little complicated. It's not exactly routine, but again, here's another example where something like Intralinks Via would be extremely helpful, right? And if you want to learn more about that, let me know. I'd be happy to discuss this with you and your project manager, right? Dan from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Take care.